Robert Haley stars as Charlie McMahon in One Copper at a Time.
Hey, Malcolm. How's it going?
Jolene, that was fast.
You called. Wasn't doing anything useful anyway.
You sound depressed.
Very perceptive. You should be a detective.
I intend to be.
Don't we all? But since I got bumped up to patrol cars, I spend all my time out front of Donut City busting guys for walking under the influence. Malcolm, I put on 5 pounds in the last 3 weeks.
Want your 10-speed back?
Wouldn't mind. What's happening on that screen?
That is why I called you. You're on the Union Finance Committee, right?
I like to do my part.
I know, that's why I voted for you. One of the jobs I'm stuck with down here in records is transferring all these old files to a new database. What you are looking at are the salary deductions for the police union RRSP plan. These figures go back to the mid-'80s.
And
when I built the CPM translators to move the stuff into an XLS-based schematic, I built in a hash program.
Which I'm sure has nothing to do with corned beef.
A hash program retabulates rounded numerators to nth mode coordinates and reports on the sum gradient deficiency. And that just happens to prove somebody was skimming from the fund.
Skimming our RRSP fund? No way!
Yes, way.
Rewind. And play back in English.
Well, here's Charlie's account.
Charlie's account?
He paid in. Okay, so from a base salary of $525 a week, 1.5% is deducted for the fund, right?
Right.
And that gives you $7.85, which goes into the plan. Wrong. Because 1.5% of 525 is $7.85.5. What happens to the half a cent?
They round them off.
Right. But where do all those rounded off coppers go? What if they were all put together and sent to, I don't know, an offshore account in the Grand Cayman Islands?
Now, a lot of people paid into that plan. How much did they get?
Not that much. 25 grand a year on average.
25? That's not very much, is it?
Back then? It's a detective's salary for a year. A medium-sized bank heist. But if you skim for almost a decade, it comes out to about $250,000. Small change, maybe, but it sure beats knocking off a Max Milk.
And nobody noticed?
The money doesn't even exist unless you've got an accounting program that does a hash total. Add up all the semi-cents, total them, and make sure they're accounted for. Metro didn't put in a hash system until the early 90s, by which time the skimming had stopped. The press would love this, eh? Police piggy bank gutted, 1 copper at a time.
What a mess.
A very sensitive case. Perfect for you and me. And the old guy.
But they'll never give this kind of an investigation to a couple of rookies and a retired cop.
I think they will.
Why?
Look who was in charge of department finances in the 80s. Top of the printout.
Deputy Inspector James Bartlett. The chief?
Will you let us finish?
Why should I?
Come on, Charlie. At least give us a chance.
You're the only one McPhee and me can agree on.
And this is the hottest cold case since Baked Alaska.
The head of homicide, the president of the police union, and 2 ambitious rookies all converge on my clock shop.
We're trying to be discreet.
And ask me to run a discreet investigation into a department ripoff. What I smell isn't Baked Alaska. It's trouble.
Damn right it's trouble. And the only reason I'm here is because we don't trust the department to handle it on their own.
Because the chief may be involved.
It's no secret how I feel about the chief.
It's no secret that you've been after him since the day he was appointed.
The man's a backstabber and a paper pusher. Spent most of his career behind a desk, and it shows.
Yeah, wouldn't know a honey dipped from a cruller. Thinks a double-double is a bid in contract bridge.
Come on, Charlie. You've worked the street, rain and shine, sleet and snow. You gotta see the man's a liability to us all.
Gee, he speaks so highly of you.
Don't be laying this all on Cliff, Charlie. Nobody on the beat is happy about the chief either.
I don't care. If this was just about a pension fraud, maybe I'd help. But it looks to me like it's about getting the chief, and I'm not in the business of staging palace coups.
Now, we're getting off track here. There's no real reason to believe the chief's involved.
Come on, Asai. The chief was in charge of administering the fund between 82 and 91, and that's when the embezzlement went down.
Risky little pup, isn't he, Charlie?
Sorry, I didn't mean to. It doesn't necessarily mean he was involved, right?
Exactly.
Speak for yourself.
Okay, so there's some dissension around the issue of involvement, but we all agree, Cliff included, that we don't want any of this to come out until we're sure.
That's why I suggested you.
And us.
Nobody's going to pay the slightest bit of attention if an old guy, a file clerk, and a beat cop wander around town asking a few questions, right? That way we keep the chief's name out of it?
Unless we have no choice.
That's the deal.
And if anybody asks, you're working for the union. Right, Cliff?
Sure, at the special request of the union.
So if this is a private investigation set in motion by the police association, why aren't you using your own people?
I'm on the finance committee, and I asked you to help as a personal favor. And that's the truth.
Come on, Charlie, what's your beef?
I don't like you and Stark using these rookies to do your dirty work.
Hold on. We brought the case to them.
We've got to pursue it.
Or I'm going public.
Charlie, we'll all feel a whole lot better if you were on side, to consult.
So?
Okay. Okay, if you're going to swim with sharks, I'll be your lifeguard. Tomorrow, I want to talk to whoever managed this fund.
It's run through Mutual Life. I'll call the head of accounts first thing in the morning.
He'll see us on short notice?
The money we got tied up with his company? You bet.
Yes, and last but not least, Fiberworks. Sell. Sorry about that. Sometimes you have to treat the brokers like delivery boys. Now, where were we?
The account manager on the police retirement fund, mid-'80s.
Frank Petrocelli, a top performer, first guy on the sales floor you could say was really computer literate.
I bet those guys were hard to come by back then.
He was a godsend. I was fresh out of U of T business with a minor in computer studies, and Frank, he put me right to work. He could do no wrong. And then?
And then?
Everything he touched seemed to turn to dust, and when the crash hit in '89, well, the firm had to downsize.
And he was downsized with it.
It's a high-pressure business, Mr. McMahon.
No, I can appreciate that, but you'd think with his computer skills...
In the end, that was a problem, too. See, Frank came up in a mainframe era.
PC-phobic?
He tried, but he just couldn't stand the loss of control. But by then, Frank was losing control of everything.
Did you keep in touch with Mr. Petrocelli?
No. The fact is, I took his job. Frank couldn't handle it.
But you found nothing out of the ordinary in his accounts?
Not really. And in terms of this skimming, there's no reason to assume anybody at Mutual had anything to do with that. Deductions were made at source, weren't they?
The skim could have happened here or there. It's hard to trace now.
We've got to explore all avenues.
Yes. Well, rest assured, you'll have our full cooperation.
That's great. What I'd really like to do is get a look at your systems accounts for the period in question. Analyze the nature of the interaction between...
I'm sorry, but there was a bit of a disaster in the mid-'90s. We were moving everything over to network-based systems, and the old mainframe went down. Well, of course, we recovered 96% of the data, but the association files were corrupted.
No backup?
There were gaps. And we didn't think anything of it at the time, but in retrospect, maybe Frank was covering his tracks.
You sure this is the same Petrocelli?
We traced it through phone billings. He moved here 5 years ago.
Rosedale to Jamestown. That's quite a fall.
Yeah. So, what do you have against Cliff Stark?
Who says I do?
Come on, Charlie. It's pretty obvious something's going on there.
There's nothing personal. Just the force I used to belong to believed in the chain of command. It's pretty obvious he doesn't.
Been gone a while, Charlie. These days, we all know the difference between working for the city and joining the army.
Yeah? Who is it?
Constable Gray, Toronto Police. We'd like to talk to Frank Petrocelli.
That's going to be a little hard to do. He's dead.
Oh. I'm sorry,
Yeah, the heavens weep, but I'm kind of busy.
So let us come in, clear up some facts, and maybe we won't come back tomorrow.
Who are you?
Sherlock Holmes. Now buzz us in.
That was very polite.
Her tone of voice, polite, was going to get us nowhere. Once we're inside, then I'll give her polite. When did you lose him, Miss Petrocelli?
Just after we moved here. I don't know, 5 years ago? Not that it matters. He OD'd.
He overdosed?
Yeah, Frank had a real problem. Bay Street in the 80s, everything was there for the taking, including lots of cocaine. We never did shake it.
They didn't say anything about a drug problem at Mutual Life.
Why would they? The idea that your meager savings might be in the hands of a drug-addled exec? Unnerving, isn't it?
That's why he lost his job?
I wish. Might have straightened him out. No, Frank lost his job because his assistant stuck a long, thin blade right in the middle of his back. It's a prescribed method of career advancement, isn't it? What's this about, anyway?
A lot of money disappeared from a pension fund your husband was running.
That wouldn't surprise me. Frank had an offshore account. But they all do. Screwing the government out of taxes is a point of pride.
Yes, ma'am. The account?
Empty. But I've still got paper on it if it'll help.
Thanks.
Hey, like they say at Narconon, you gotta make amends.
So what you're saying is Petrocelli is as guilty as sin.
Judging from the Grand Cayman accounts.
The money was laundered through a series of profitable investments. By the time he was done, Petrocelli had over $500,000. Not bad, but not big enough to draw much attention.
Half the money came back into the country as consulting fees. The rest was moved to a numbered account in Switzerland.
No way to break that.
Unless you can trace some of it coming back to Canada.
You know what Stark is going to ask? Did any of that cash come back to the chief?
Good question.
And that's the problem. We need to find the smoking gun. The only way to implicate the chief, or clear him, is to get a look at his financial records.
No way he'll open up his personal accounts for Cliff Stark.
And no way we've got enough evidence for a court order.
There must be some way we can move him on it.
Since when does a beat cop try to move the chief?
Hey, if the chief of police is dirty...
Drop it. It's a dead end.
This is the kind of thing you gotta take seriously. A lot of officers have money in that fund, so we had to go public.
Has the chief responded?
The chief is aware of what's going on. He's been at the center of it since 1982.
Then you are saying he was involved.
Until the chief agrees to show us his books, nobody's gonna know for sure.
When contacted, Chief Bartlett refused to comment on the ongoing investigation or the charges by union boss Clifford Stark. This is Christy Collins for CJHT. More news as it happens.
Wow, that should light a fire under the SOB, eh, Jolene?
You didn't tell me you were going to the press.
Wow, what did you expect me to do?
You could have warned me.
Whose boneheaded idea was that?
McMahon. I guess he saw the news conference.
News radio is running the story every half hour. Jolene, I can't believe you let this clown run you like a snitch.
Like a what?
The investigation is compromised and the chief is screwed.
We're working the case with the union, and if keeping them informed makes me into a snitch...
It's all routine. I don't think you believe that, Jolene.
Backing your union
You're not backing your union. You're backing a bully. Stark uses his position to wage war on anybody that doesn't fit his personal view.
Go easy there, McMahon. All he has to do is open his books.
If he's cleared, then...
It doesn't matter. All anyone will remember is that the chief was investigated for corruption.
Well, that's what we're doing, isn't it?
Stark is out to dump the chief and get him replaced with somebody he can push around. And that, like it or not, is what you're doing.
Look, I didn't know Cliff was going to call the media, but if that's what it takes to clear the case...
This is political assassination.
Jeez, lighten up, will you? The chief's a big boy. He can take care of himself. Always has.
I'm not going to let you get away with this, Cliff.
Oh, too late, Charlie.
We'll see. In the meantime, stay out of my face. Both of you.
Come in.
Thanks.
So the chief in jail yet?
Not quite.
You gonna get him?
Why is everybody so damn sure he's guilty of something?
Well, I sure didn't get the cash.
Is there any chance anybody else could have?
You tell me. Who's the chief run with?
You said Frank's assistant put a knife in his back. Was that Harold Lord?
That's right.
Mr. Lord was a computer specialist, wasn't he?
That what he told you? Maybe he is today. Frank taught him everything he knew.
He said Frank was a dinosaur. Couldn't keep up with the new technology.
That's just not true. My husband bought his first home computer before anyone in the firm even knew what PC stood for.
Well, that's not how Lord tells it.
No. Well, I'll tell you something. What Harry really excelled at, finding the best Coke pastry had to offer and making sure Frank got a steady supply.
Your husband came to depend on him.
You bet. And when the time came, he made sure the bosses discovered Frank's little problem.
So he got Frank fired and took his job.
Not right away. Company had to spend a bundle training him.
Yeah? What kind of training?
I don't know. Computerized currency exchange? Must have been. He was in Geneva.
Handy.
The Swiss bank account. You mean Harry?
We are investigating a computer crime, with money being laundered offshore.
And Harry worked in Geneva. What's that give you?
Not much, but you kept your husband's banking records. Is there anything else? Something you may have forgotten?
Frank kept everything on his computer. A spanking new Apple IIe, and away he'd go. That's one of the things he liked about PCs. Privacy.
An Apple IIe?
They came before Macintosh, right?
And he kept his files on it?
Yeah.
What happened to it?
Well, Frank left a pile of junk in the storage locker. It's there.
You kept it?
Hey, I'm not sentimental. I went down there last week to try and clear the rubble, but I just can't get up the energy to sort it out.
Can we look?
That's me, number 48. The one with the kicked-in door.
Oh, great.
Damn crackheads. They don't even know what's worth stealing.
The computer?
No, my faith in human decency.
A 20-year-old computer covered in dust, and they took it. The info on that hard drive might have made this case.
The hard drive on a 2E? We're well before that, Charlie. Everything's on floppy disk. Cardboard box in the corner.
I can't read these disks. They run on a totally different operating system.
Well, do you know where we can get another 2E?
Yeah, I have a friend. He collects. He's so gone he's even got a Commodore VIC-20.
Yeah, that's funny. So get him on the line, get the old Apple over here, and let's look at these disks.
Not that simple. I can tell from the software he was running CPM.
So we'll run CPM too.
We could try, but which version? You need a special card, and then there's the whole issue of drive speed ratio.
Drive speed ratio?
These old computers worked off peripheral disk drives. The speed of the drives could be inconsistent. Your disk would read perfectly on your system, but get your buddy's drive to read it? Sometimes yes, sometimes no.
Basically, you're telling me we can't get there from here.
Sure we can, but it's going to take a lot of time. And we don't have any.
We don't?
This just got posted on the Metro Police website. Members of City Council are calling for the chief's resignation. He's called a press conference for 5.
Great. We got any alternative to a long time?
Find Frank's 2E.
Well, how are we going to do that?
Jolene.
She's in Stark's pocket.
Trust me, Charlie, Jolene is not in anybody's pocket.
Well, then she's a damn fool. Look, Malcolm, if Jolene hadn't talked to Stark, he wouldn't have talked to the reporter, and the chief wouldn't be calling a press conference for this afternoon.
So she made a mistake. Seems to me you've been in the same boat once or twice. And as I recall, she gave you another chance.
Okay if I get in?
Suit yourself.
Thanks.
So what do you want, McMahon?
Your help.
That's so.
I've got to find a 20-year-old Apple IIe. Got boosted out of the Petrocelli storage locker in the last 7 days. Think you can track it down?
It's not like there's a lot of fences want to buy a 20-year-old computer.
I know, but I still got to try. There's a local crew of crackheads like to work that building.
The computer's gone, McMahon. Dumpster man, solid waste transfer station.
See what you can find out, okay?
That all you gotta say?
Something else you need to know?
Yeah, you got anything you want to tell me?
You waiting for me to apologize before you do your job?
Let's just say I could use some motivation.
Okay, I got pretty self-righteous back at the Union, but I just wanted you to be careful. The water down there is full of sharks.
And you're a Class A lifeguard?
And you can take care of yourself. Okay. I'm sorry. Apology accepted?
There's a boy I know who lives in that building. Been doing this kind of basement B&E since he was 4. I'm serious. Used to be small enough to slide over transoms. Called him Alibaba. Of course, once he got on the pipe, he got a lot cruder on the job. I'll find him.
Thanks, Jolene.
Just doing my job.
Yeah, well, I guess I better do the same. I got another appointment with Harry Lord.
You got anything you can use?
Not really, but maybe I can shake him up. Anyway, I've got to try. We're running out of time.
Mr. McMahon, sorry to keep you waiting. Management committee meetings go on forever. Coffee, juice, something stronger.
No, thanks. The reason I called...
Yes, I can imagine. Things have certainly heated up, haven't they? The truth is we were in there doing damage control. Will the chief resign?
No way.
But he's so hopelessly compromised.
Like the firm?
Well, that's the great thing about our system, Mr. McMahon. To a substantial corporate entity, this kind of scandal comes and goes. At worst, a story on page 2 of the report on business. At best, a pointed jibe or two at the AGM. But if you have to answer to City Hall...
Yeah, it's a messy business. They call it democracy.
Yeah. What can I do for you?
I'll keep this short. You remember Frank's old Apple IIe?
I found it.
An Apple IIe? How in hell did you ever find that?
Sources, Malcolm. Sources. I got my pal Alibaba to venture that he may have heard about some guys he didn't know breaking into some lockers, and how they were hauling away this piece of crap when another guy, who just happened to be with them, pointed out an Apple computer wasn't worth squat.
So?
So, they chucked it into an empty storage bin down by the fire exit. That computer was maybe 20 yards from the crime scene.
That's what I call legwork.
And that's what I call dumb luck. Now let's run those discs.
So let me understand what you're saying. Frank Petrocelli kept a journal, and you got it on disk.
Along with his accounts, yeah.
And from what he wrote, you feel I may be implicated in this ancient fraud case.
That's the gist of it.
But surely there's a statute of limitations on this kind of thing. The fraud took place more than 10 years ago.
Well, the fraud began more than 10 years ago. But since then, the money's been invested and reinvested and moved from country to country. The initial embezzlement is just one element in a long, ongoing series of related crimes.
And disks from an old computer can prove all that?
Well, they prove you and Frank were in business together, and that the money in a certain Swiss account is under your control.
An account in Switzerland? I'm sorry, I know nothing about an account in Switzerland.
Sure you do. We can prove that for sure.
So what's your problem? Why talk to me at this juncture?
Maybe I could arrange for those disks to get wiped. For a price.
A bribe?
I'm just saying I think something could be arranged.
And I think you're trying to get me to incriminate myself, which means you don't have everything you need to tie this thing to me.
You're wrong. We have enough to get your account book opened. The rest will follow.
Then what's the point of this exercise?
We've got the evidence, Harry. We just don't have much time. If we work out something now and save the chief embarrassment...
You'll make sure I cop a plea?
I can guarantee you'll get a lot of help before you go to trial. And if this mess brings the chief down, we're going to nail you to the wall.
Yes, well, this is all very amusing, but I've got work to do, so if you'll excuse me...
Just a sec. McMahon?
Charlie, I found it. Malcolm's got it up and he's running the files. How's it going on your end?
Thus far, I'm not happy with the results. Can you put Malcolm on?
Yeah, just a sec. Malcolm.
Charlie?
Yeah.
You with Lord?
Yeah?
Try this on him. I've got an access number here at a certain Swiss account, and I'll bet he's got it memorized. IF3690.
IF3690.
12XC347.
12XC347.
Mary, cancel the rest of the day.
You just say something?
Not really. Just gasping for air.
On the contrary, Mr. McMahon, I have an interesting proposal for you.
Lord is cooperating fully. He has resigned his position at Mutual Life and has offered to make full restitution of funds to the plan.
So he won't do time.
Given the age of the offense and his cooperation in recovering the... Oh, what in the hell do you want me to do, Cliff? We got the guy.
And you're giving him a walk so the chief can get up in there and get real pompous about his innocence. Well, I'm not going to let him get away with it.
Come on, Cliff. I set up the deal to recover the money.
You want us to throw that away so this bum can spend 2 years in minimum security?
I want to see criminals punished, and under Chief Bartlett,
Oh,
nobody...
get off it, Cliff.
What?
I'm the head of this union's budget committee. And if you're prepared to lose $500,000 in members' funds just to make some points on the chief...
I didn't say that.
Funny, that's what it sounded like to me, and I'm a voting member.
Well, it's not what I meant.
Give it a rest, Stark. You lose, the chief wins. End of story.
Oh, the hell it is. Yeah, I know you think this is a witch hunt or something, but I'm telling you, that paper pusher has been screwing the men on this force since the day he arrived.
The men and the women on this force are getting tired of this. And here's what it is. Malcolm and Charlie just cracked a pretty near impossible case. No help from you and little enough help from me. Now, you show up at this press conference ready to dump on what they just did so you can keep chipping away at the chief.
That is not what I am
All
doing.
I'm saying is, if you walk into that room, it better be to praise the work we did, not spatter us with mud.
You go, girl.
You done?
You hear me?
Yeah, I heard you. This thing with the chief, I got my reasons. But you're right. You guys did a hell of a job. All three of you. And I'm going into the press conference to say just that. Nothing more. Thanks. From all of us.
Geez, Cliff. You're turning into a statesman.
You have been listening to One Copper at a Time. This week's episode of our new series, The Old Guy, by Paul LeDoux. Featured in the cast tonight, Robert Haley as Charlie McMahon, William Colgate as Kirk McPhee, Ryan Rogerson as Malcolm Fieldstein, and Karen Glave as Jolene Gray. With them, you also heard Hardy T. Linehan as Cliff Stark, Ben Carlson as Harold Lloyd, Angela Guy as Maria Petrocelli, and Raven Dowda as Christy Collins. The music was composed and conducted by Milan Kymlick. The recording engineer was Wayne Richards. Sound effects were by Matt Wilcott. Colleen Woods was the associate producer. Our coordinating producer is Barry Morgan. The program was produced and directed in Toronto by Bill Howell, the executive producer of the Mystery Project. I'm Bob Boving, thanking you for listening and inviting your comments. See you next week.